Hey everyone, Sergio with the Rideshare Guy. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Wheel. Well, today I'm joined by Greg from Nashville, Tennessee. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing all right. How are you today?
Doing excellent, excellent. Greg is going to obviously introduce himself, but one of the reasons I'm interviewing today is because he is a full-time driver. And in today's age, full-time driving is, from what we see, is not as profitable as it used to be, but we're going to hear from him. So, Greg, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name is Greg. I drive in Nashville. I drive almost exclusively Uber. I do not qualify for anything like XL, so it's pretty much Uber X Comfort, Uber Share, and Uber Pets,
What
and
kind
the
of car,
occasional
what kind of car do you drive, by the way?
2021 Mazda four-cylinder
Okay,
CX-5.
okay, cool. Did you buy that car new?
Um, my father did, yes.
Okay. What did you do before you got into rideshare?
I sold crystals, minerals, and fossils from all over the world. I kind of had to tank that business because of my landlord's games, and that's when I picked up Uber. It was a way for me to not only make money when I had to tank the business, but also I realized when my wife had passed away that I didn't know anybody in the area.
Okay,
Um, I didn't know the area that I lived in because I pretty much was a stay-at-home husband, and this was my solution. And I found out that I liked it, so I kept going.
okay. Um, I mean, Nashville is a pretty busy market, I'm assuming.
To a degree, yes.
Okay. Mostly there's a lot of tourists, I guess, coming in and out. And
Yeah,
do you have upfront fares in Nashville? Like, do you see where you're going before you accept the trip?
most of the time, yes.
Why is that?
There have been a couple of times where I've had a fare or a trip radar pass across my screen where it hasn't given me any information, but that is highly rare.
Okay. So you mostly do Uber. Do you also do Lyft?
Uh, Extremely rarely. Occasionally, if I happen to be in the Nashville region when they have a bonus hour, like $6 to $8 extra per trip, I will stick into the center of Nashville, the very center of it, and I will only accept short trips because they'll take you a mile or two away, and you're getting an extra $8 on top of whatever the base fare they're offering is, plus the turbo.
Okay. Um, so I know we emailed back and forth, and then you had mentioned that you do this full time, right?
Yep.
This is your only gig at the moment, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you, from a full-time driver, the challenges that you're facing, also the positives. So, floor is yours.
Um, I would have to say that, well, let's start with the negatives so we can finish with a positive.
Okay.
Um, I would have to say that my biggest issues currently, I mean, obviously the pay, we all know that, so we'll skip right by that. But the the BNA operations people, BNA being the airport here, the operations people, I have a big issue with them and the way that they behave towards us. And I have a problem with, believe it or not, other Uber drivers or other rideshare drivers and other drivers on the road generally, but I almost never have problems with my riders.
Okay. And
Um,
I mean, when you said BNA, obviously that's the airport, but what kind of problems? Like when you said with the officials, is it the holding lot? Do you guys have a holding lot? How does the process work at your airport?
well, so we have a rideshare waiting lot, which is across the airport from the pickup area.
Yeah.
And the pickup area is underneath the garage. So when you get down there, you almost never get your wait time. You almost never hit the pin because of the GPS and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there was one time where I was dropping off a rider up at the departures area, and I just sat there for 30 seconds finishing answering a question that they had asked me when a guy comes up and he tells me to move. And I said, I'm dropping them off. He said, move along right now.
Yeah.
So he just started yelling at me in front of the passenger.
Yeah.
And then just the other day, they were so swamped that it was like a 5 minute waiting line of traffic to get into the pickup spot. And this one guy, I pulled around to the side of some cars. I saw one guy getting ready to leave the line or whatever. The way they have it is separate lines A, B, C, one, two, and three, and then they have the center line that people can get through when they need to. Well, people were blocking that up, so they had these people directing the traffic and whatnot. Well, I pulled around, this guy was getting ready to take off, and the operations guy came over and he told me to move, and he was pointing at the head of the line, like telling me to move and drive back around. And I said, my riders are right there. He said, move. I said, my riders are right there. He snapped a picture of my license plate, and I said, what are you doing? He
Yeah.
said, you didn't listen to me. And the spot that he was trying to tell me to move, which he wasn't even pointing at, wouldn't have even fit my car and would have effectively blocked another driver from getting out who was already ready to leave.
Yeah, that's typical airport shenanigans with airport police and
Yep.
officials. You know, they have a job. Obviously, they're trying to move the lines, but then they don't understand how pickup and drop off works. Your rider may not be ready, all that good stuff, right? I mean, they're not in your shoes, so they don't know. Um,
Well, he just didn't have any spatial or situational awareness and
yeah,
clearly was overwhelmed.
yeah, yeah. You said you're a full-time driver. You know, let's talk a little bit about your how long you've been doing it, how many trips you have now?
8 months, 1,500 trips.
Okay. So that's about a couple hundred trips a month, I would say.
Yeah, and steadily increasing per month.
Okay. When you say full time, like how many hours are we talking about? 40 hours, 50 hours a week?
Uh, It fluctuates. What I do is I go out with the idea to set myself a minimum goal of what to make for the day. And
Yeah.
then once I hit that goal, I determine if I want to keep going and make more or not. So sometimes, admittedly, it's 5, 6 hours. Sometimes it's 9, 10, 11 hours.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I would say average 40, maybe
Okay.
45.
Okay. Obviously this gives you the flexibility, you know, that you can do other things on the side. So you also had mentioned that you do drive an hour from an hour away. Is that correct?
That's correct. The town that I live in is a border town to Kentucky. And I apologize for the noise.
Yeah.
Someone's mowing the lawn. Uh, So I live on the border of Kentucky, and as a result, when I take people across that border, I no longer qualify to get up to dead mile at back, even though there's a bunch of larger towns and casinos on the other side of the border.
Okay.
So as a result, my town, even though it's considered the fourth largest here, there's not a lot of business for rideshare there.
Okay.
And then you've
Uh,
got the base too, and you have to get a pass every day to get onto the base in order to service the service members.
okay. So you're an hour from Nashville, right?
Yep.
Okay. And when you do trips to other states, I'm assuming you're not allowed to pick up when you drop off, right?
Generally, no.
Yeah. Why do you accept those then? Like you don't see where you see where you're going, right?
I I don't anymore.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
exactly why I drive into Nashville, because just staying here without the ability to take someone across the border or find someone across the border and bring them here, you
Okay.
can't make a whole lot of money staying in this town.
So being an hour away, I mean, obviously you're spending, you know, you're putting miles on your car. How many miles would you say it is? Probably like 50, 60 miles?
Roughly, yes. And I do sometimes take a couple of rides here in town to see if there is one that will take me to Nashville.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll get lucky, and towards the end of my day, I'll get one from Nashville back to here. But generally speaking, uh, they offer an average of maybe 32 to I would say 30 to $35 for the trip, which
Okay.
isn't even a dollar a mile. So I'm
Yeah.
basically just covering almost covering the cost of traveling back and forth with those trips.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, one thing I hate the most is dead miling, right? I mean, getting paid something to go home is better than getting paid nothing and getting
Well,
paid.
exactly,
Yeah, I mean, getting
exactly.
paid something to go to work, let's say in the mornings, if you're an hour away from Nashville, you get paid 30, 35 bucks. It's better than nothing. It's probably your daily gas, expenditure. But so most mornings though, then like give me your typical day in Greg's rideshare day. Your what time you wake up, when do you start working, all that good stuff.
Lately I've been waking up anywhere from 4 to 7, and then what I will do is get up. If coffee's been made, I'll grab some coffee. If not, and I really need it, I'll just do a single cup. Um, and then once I'm done with my coffee, I get ready to head out for the day, and I go over to the local Circle K. I grab myself a coffee for the road. I grab myself an electrolyte water for the road. If I'm out of waters for my passengers, I'll fill up on those too. Um, and I'll top off the car, and then I'll open up the app and I'll get right on the road.
Yeah. And then I mean, is it do you look into let's say setting up your destination filters, going towards town, in on both apps, let's say, because you have two on each app, right? So you could use
General,
that. You could use
yeah,
those. Obviously, fire both apps up and then see what you're gonna get going in that direction. I mean, you're spending money, right? Because it's part of your cost of doing business. So if every morning, if you're gonna dead mile 60 miles one way and on the way back 60 miles the other way, I mean, at least the gas and depreciation on the car is going to make a big difference, right?
that's very true, and that's why I look for the more lucrative rides because that helps make up for it. So if I drive an hour in, if I can't find a ride in and I drive an hour in and then I'm driving around for 8 hours, if I'm averaging, 30 to $35 an hour, at one point, before school let out for the summer, I was up to 38 an hour.
Okay.
Then that kind of makes up for the dead miling back and forth
Yeah.
because I mean that's a large sum per hour.
Yeah. I mean, you do factor in all these costs, right? I mean, I'm hoping that you do. Well, if you're
Yeah.
watching us, we
No,
we constantly tell you, right? Know your cost
no.
per mile.
Absolutely. I do use the solo app.
Okay.
So that keeps track of that. But, and I also realized that everything that I do on the road counts towards my cutting the costs of my taxes. So, the
Yeah.
waters that I buy for my riders, the charging cables that I replace for my riders, the car washes, the chemicals that I buy to actually clean the inside of the car myself,
Yeah.
all of that is taken into account as well and taken off of the taxes.
Yeah. You said you've been using the solo app. How long have you been using the app?
I'd say about 6 months.
6 months? Okay. Yeah. They do provide good, I mean, it's like a one-stop shop kind of a thing, right? They can do your taxes there. You follow your,
Yeah, they do. They keep track of almost everything for me,
yeah.
and it's so great. And I don't even have to necessarily keep the receipt as long as I remember the numbers. I can plug in my costs manually.
Yeah, they are one of our affiliates. We cannot recommend it highly, really. It's like it's a must. I mean, we have to run this as a business, right? And if we don't run it as a
Absolutely,
business, yeah, a lot of people don't. They just go, they put the gas in the car and go, and then that's part of the cost, obviously, but not all of the cost. And as independent contractors, we do have so many more write-offs that we can take advantage of as opposed to be a W-2.
exactly.
So, let's say, you drove an hour, now you're in Nashville, now you're a busy part of town. Do you
Well,
deploy any? Yeah,
before we go there, you had asked me a question about the filters, and the reality is that
yeah,
I don't use the filters.
okay,
I turn on Uber and I drive around. I take a request or two, and if I
yeah,
feel like it's too dead, I just head straight into Nashville. If I
okay,
feel like it isn't too dead, then I'll continue to take a few rides in the hopes that I do get one going into Nashville.
okay,
But generally speaking, I won't use the filters
yeah.
because I noticed that when they do give me a trip on a filter, it's considerably less than when they give me a trip, the same trip without the filter. It's like, well, we're taking you towards your destination. We can cut a little bit off and he'll still probably take it. No,
Price
I
wise,
don't
right?
do that.
Yeah, earnings wise, I agree with that. When you do use their destination filters, I think their algorithm has figured that out. That it considers you're going towards your spot, and we're going to pay you less, which is bogus anyway. But how about reservations? Do you look for reservations on the Lyft app and the Uber app for you to maybe possibly go into Nashville?
Occasionally I will look at them on the Lyft app, but like I said, I almost very rarely ever use that. But with Uber, I don't necessarily look for the reservation rides, but if they come across,
Yeah,
I will take the time to actually look at them. However, I notice that they don't tell me what the pickup time is until after I accept it. So if I
yeah,
don't like the pickup time,
yeah,
then I'm forced into a cancellation rate increase. Just the
yeah,
other day, I picked up someone who's going to the airport in Nashville
yeah.
from the town that I live in. And when I got there, the wait timer started at 20 minutes. Well,
Wow.
5 minutes past the pickup time, they still weren't charging for the wait time.
Yeah. On reservations, they don't charge they don't pay you for wait time, supposedly, which is something that they need to change, obviously.
Well,
So
the person was very generous to me, so they made up for it.
yeah, no, I mean, I think reservations are really actually they pay well to a point. But you should definitely look into Lyft just to utilize the app for these kind of things. Maybe set your destination filter on Lyft. No harm, no foul. It may hit or not hit, but give him a chance because multi-apping is the key these days, really. Although I do understand maybe Uber is probably the dominant player, right, in your state, which in most states they own 75% of the business. So obviously you're going to get more requests. So
Well,
you're doing this, yeah.
interestingly, here, Uber is the dominant in Nashville, but Lyft is the dominant in my town,
Oh,
including at the base itself.
okay. Well, then you should definitely turn it on and try to grab something going towards Nashville. Um, so you said you do this full time, right? You've been doing it for about 8 months, a couple
Yep.
thousand trips or 1,600 trips. Um, Obviously, I ask this to everybody that I interview, give me a couple of things you like about it, give me a couple of things you dislike. Well, you dislike was your, airport situation and overall earnings, but give me a couple of things you like about it.
Well, and other drivers, not necessarily, I mean, rideshare drivers, but other drivers on the road. But yeah, I've had some issues with other actual rideshare drivers themselves, like getting ready to just the lack of consideration for other drivers because they're just in it for the money.
Yeah.
Or I actually had one who started to get out of his car to come after me after he pulled out in oncoming traffic, which was me, and I beeped at him.
Yeah.
And this was at the airport too that he tried to get out of the car.
Wow.
Once he saw the other drivers backing up behind me, that's when he decided to forget it and drive off. But I mean, still, I encounter this stuff regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
yeah, a couple of things you like about rideshare.
yeah, absolutely. I love meeting all of the different people, especially in a diverse place like Nashville. One of the things I started to do for fun was keep track of all the different countries that I've met people from, and I'm already up to 42 countries.
Wow.
And so from each of those people, I learn a little bit about their country. And then I'm able to take that and bring it to the conversation next time I meet somebody from that country as well. Same thing with businesses. When people are here for conferences, I learn about their business. I ask them questions. I ask their opinions on stuff, and I'm able to bring that to the table the next time I meet someone who does the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely flexibility is definitely a big part of it, right? A lot of people do
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
What job can you go to, right? And 2 hours later, you can tell your boss, I'm leaving for the day, by the way. It's like, right? They go like, don't let the door hit you on the way out, right? So it's like,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's the only positive I see. Other than that, I don't know. We're going to talk a little bit about your pay, obviously. So you're doing this full time. When you're doing it full time, I mean, do you compare this to what you could do with a W-2, or what do you compare it to? I mean, do you not compare it at all?
Well, I don't really compare it at all. I mean, I generally know what different industries or different jobs make around here,
Okay.
and I'm still breaching that. And even if I'm just breaking even with that after costs and whatnot,
Yeah.
the way that I look at it is, well, there I have a set schedule that I have to follow and a boss that I have to deal with.
Yeah.
I still don't, but I'm making the same money.
Okay. When you say
Uh, which
money, so
which
40
one do you
hours,
think I'm gonna
let's say.
choose?
Yeah, I mean, Greg, 40 hours, right? Let's say 40, 45, 50 hours.
Yep.
Um, what do you compare it to if you compare it, if you had to compare it to? Like, is it a minimum wage job you're comparing it to? Is it a, skill job? What are you comparing?
Um, I'm comparing it to average. Here's the thing: the state minimum wage here, they don't care.
Yeah.
It's still 7.50 an hour here.
Wow. Okay.
So even a lot of places like convenience stores pay above minimum wage at this point because
Yeah.
this and now because of that, the state says, well, who cares about minimum wage? We don't have to keep up with it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at what someone would make, say, working at a convenience store, for example. I'm friends with the people at the local Circle K. So I
Yeah.
asked them, what do you pay here? They say, well, if you're just starting out, it's probably 9.50 an hour, maybe $10 depending upon your experience.
Wow.
As a key holder, you're going to make a little bit more, 11 to 13. And obviously as a manager, you make more than that.
Yeah.
So I compare it to things like that. There's a lower cost, an extremely lower cost of living here. So
Is
I
it?
don't
Okay.
necessarily have to compare myself to a trade job.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. I mean, $10, I was like, how can you live on $10 an hour? It was like, I don't know. But then,
Well, as long as the
like
ten
you said,
dollars
yeah,
is profit.
yeah, yeah. So let's circle back to your 40 hours a week, right? Well, on average, let's say you drove 40 hours a week last month, right? What were your gross revenue or what was your gross earnings for 40 hours on average? You don't have to give us exact numbers.
Well, okay, so it's a little bit different during the summer. We have a
Okay.
huge, huge population reduction here
Okay.
because we have schools like Vanderbilt, Belmont, and a few others. And then even the outer lying towns all have their own schools. So we
Okay.
have a huge population reduction, leaving us for the summer with a surplus of drivers and less of a demand.
Yeah.
But before the summer started, and now things are actually starting to pick back up again now that
Yeah.
schools come back. They come back early here. Beforehand, I was doing like a minimum of 200 a day. On good days, I was
Oh,
able to push 250, 300 for the day.
yeah. So that's your daily goal, 200.
When school's in session, yeah.
Okay. I mean, look, he's facing challenges. I mean, he's an hour away from a busy city like Nashville. He has to dead mile here and there, but luckily he's keeping up with his costs. He's figuring all that out. Um, and he seems, you seem like you're pretty happy with what you're doing at the moment anyway. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, you're a young guy, right? I mean, how long you going to do this? And do you have plan B, plan C? What if the car breaks down? I mean, do you have a rainy day fund? Do you factor all those things in?
So being that this was my first year, I wasn't expecting to slow down during the summer. So the answer would be no, not necessarily a rainy day fund. I was forced into moving just as graduation happened. So I was working, packing, and moving for a week straight because that's about all I had was 10 days. And um, once the move was over, school was out, and I was like, oh crap. So now I'm traveling an hour back and forth,
Yeah.
and there's the population reduction. But luckily, even with that, I was still able to make my bills.
Okay.
So now that things are picking back up again, my first course of action is to set some money aside in case something happens.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm also going to be, now that I'll be able to make more regularly again, I'm going to spend some extra time working on getting my business back up and running.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I don't look at rideshare as a career, to be honest with you, but there are people who've done it for 7, 8, 9 years without burnout, but they're very rare, right? And
If it wasn't for another Uber driver taking me under his wing, who's a 10-year veteran, and showing me that you have to find loopholes for their game the same way they find loopholes to do what they do with you.
yeah,
Um, and some of the things that worked for him, it was my ability to take that and adapt it to what worked for me.
yeah,
That made it work for me because before that, I definitely wouldn't have survived doing this.
yeah. I mean, look, we say this all the time, right? You have to find a mentor, which either he found you or you found him. Those are key things. A lot of people think rideshare is easy, pick up point A, drop off point B, but no, there's a steep learning curve in rideshare, and every city is different. Every city's rhythm is different. Every city's traffic patterns are different. You have to really learn what you're doing. And that's why, you can earn, 25, $30 an hour in your city versus your average driver, which you will see on your solo app, by the way. Yeah, are you way above the average earner in Nashville? Because they
Oh
give you
yeah,
the comparisons.
the average is usually somewhere between 18 and $21.
Yeah.
And throughout the summer I was still pulling in $28. And then now that school's back in session, I expect it to go back up to where it was, which was fluctuating between 35 and 38 an hour.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And then here's Greg. I mean, I
But
always at the end of
it's
an
da-
episode. Yeah.
it's dangerous out there though. It is
Yeah.
so incredibly dangerous out there, at least in this region. The amount of accidents that I see on the regular are enormous. I've seen more cars on fire than the rest of my life combined. I had a guy the other day who followed me for 15, 20 minutes after swerving and brake checking me on a 70-mile-an-hour highway.
Yeah. Do you have a dash cam?
No, and that's one of the first things that I'm going to buy now.
Please do, because I've been using, I mean, we say it on the show all the time. I've been using Display
Yeah.
Ride, which you don't have to do anything. If you're past 2 minutes installing it, you're doing something wrong, number one. And number two, it directly uploads to the cloud, meaning you don't have to mess with SD cards, uploads, downloads. So I'll send you an email, and if you use the code RSG, you get it for like $10 a month, which you cannot even buy a hamburger for $10 these days. And but for your safety, full-time driver, you must have a dash cam. You have to have a dash cam.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. It was so scary.
yeah, yeah, and because it's also a deterrent, right? I mean, for unruly passengers, when they get in your car, you go, man, you're getting recorded, so behave yourself. Or the other idiot drivers that you're talking about, right? And for accidents as well. So I'm going to give you the floor for the last couple of minutes. Here's Greg from Nashville, who literally drives an hour into the city to make money, but then he's surviving and he's paying his bills. And this is the good side of the gig world, right? I mean, he was in a bind, and Uber is covering his butt at the moment. And hopefully you watch us and you learn a few tricks from us as well. But what he did was very, very smart, right? And he found a driver, or a driver found him, took him under his wing, and out of the box, he had a leg up on the rest of the drivers in his city, because it's a must. You have to have a mentor. And so, give us some advice, man. Give us some advice for a couple of minutes to finish the episode.
Well, it before he took me under his wing, I was pulling in maybe 75, $80 a day. And I was like, okay, this clearly isn't going to be a good fix, but it's carrying me for now. But what I was able to do, and I don't necessarily do everything that he taught me, I was able to take what he did teach me and adapt it to what worked for me. The biggest thing that I can tell people is when you have a passenger in your car, read the room.
Yeah,
That is probably the most important thing, because somebody who's having a bad day, who's looking for an excuse to take it out on you, if you read the room, you see that they're in a bad mood, um, just take them to where they need to go.
yeah,
Leave it quiet, leave it up to them to broach any type of a conversation. And chances are they won't, that they will have less of a justification to give you that, 1 to 3 star rating that everybody hates. When I have someone from an older generation in my car, I have my playlist set up in a few different parts. So I will skip the songs over to something that fits more their generation. Um, Same thing with the younger crowd, the college versus the working crowd out of the younger people.
yeah.
So just learning how to read the room. When they come in, the first thing I will do is hand them a water. I do full water bottles. I
Wow.
mean, you go to Walmart, they are 15 cents a bottle for 40 bottles.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you're paying 15 cents for the chance. And sometimes it has garnered me as much as a $10 tip.
yeah,
I hand somebody a water, I tell them where the charging cables are. I let them decline the water if they want, and they're just all the time I get, your car is clean. This is full service. Thank you so much. If you're in the South, don't try to save gas by leaving your windows down and not running the AC.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how many people get in my car and they say, "Thank God you have AC." The last several Uber drivers just have their windows down.
yeah,
And when it's 90 degrees out, they appreciate that
yeah,
more than you know.
yeah. Those are veteran words that you have learned or you discovered what works for you. And we're in the service industry. I mean, people don't understand that, right? I mean, yeah, Uber put us together, the driver and the rider, but they matched us. But then, the rider is paying for the trip, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they're the
just
boss
just
for the next 20 minutes or half hour.
well, and that's what I tell them. If they want to stop at an extra place that's along the way, like, oh, I need to grab something from a convenience store, I'm like, well, there's a convenience store. I can stop for just a minute. And usually they'll tip me extra for that. But that's not why I do it. I do it because I take pride in the service that I provide for these people.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have told me that it makes me stand out from the rest.
Yeah, your attitude is amazing. I mean, that's what one of the keys to success is actually, more than knowing yourself. You have to
Absolutely.
have the right attitude to do this job because, it's a difficult thing to do, to deal with 20, 30 different personalities every single day. Well, here's Greg. He's surviving at the moment. He's doing it full time.
For now.
But yeah, for now, but hopefully he'll be thriving soon with his own business as well on the side. And Greg, thank you from Nashville. Much
I
appreciated.
appreciate you having me. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for watching this episode of Behind the Wheel on the Rideshare Guy. We've been doing these interviews for the past 6 months with very successful drivers from different cities around the nation. Click here for another episode. Make sure you subscribe and turn on all notifications for other episodes of Behind the Wheel as well as amazing content on our channel.